If Niccolò Machiavelli were alive today, he wouldn't need an army or a throne to gain power. He'd only need your attention. And once he had that, he'd carefully curate every aspect of how you perceive him. You see, Machiavelli understood something most people still struggle to grasp. Reality matters far less than appearance. In fact, he famously wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience what you really are." In our world of filters, online personas, and branding, he'd be in his element. Because now, more than ever, controlling how people see you is the first step to controlling how they think. Today, perception is currency. People don't dig deeper. They judge you in seconds based on how you speak, how you dress, what you post, and how you present yourself in any given room. And once that image is set in their minds, it becomes incredibly hard to change. That's why someone who appears confident, even if they're insecure, gets more respect. That's why someone who appears kind, even if they're calculating, earns more trust. Machiavelli wouldn't just understand this dynamic, he would weaponize it. He would craft a version of himself that looked harmless, intelligent, and principled, all while orchestrating the game from behind the scenes. But don't mistake this for dishonesty, it's strategy. Machiavelli's mindset wasn't to deceive for the sake of deception. His focus was always control, influence, direction, and he knew that people respond to symbols more than truth. They follow impressions more than facts. You don't have to be a genius to manipulate someone's thoughts. You just have to understand what image they want to believe in and then step into it. That's what the modern world rewards. Perception management masked as authenticity. In a boardroom, this might look like the person who pretends to be the team player, nodding along, offering warm encouragement, saying the right buzzwords. But behind closed doors, they're positioning themselves, collecting leverage, whispering just the right suggestions into the right ears. They don't need to force anyone to listen, because they've already made themselves look like the kind of person worth following. That's Machiavellian to the core. Let people see what flatters them. Let them believe they chose you. Meanwhile, you've been quietly shaping their opinions the whole time. Social media, even more dangerous terrain. Machiavelli would see platforms like Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn as battlegrounds for psychological warfare. He'd understand that people don't want truth, they want confirmation. They want to see someone who mirrors their values, projects confidence, and stands out just enough to seem admirable, but not so much as to feel threatening. So he'd post calculated content. Pictures that stir emotion, captions that inspire trust, opinions that seem relatable, but carefully build loyalty. Not because he believes all of it, but because it gets him one step closer to steering the collective narrative in his favor. And the beauty of it, most people would never notice, because they want to believe what they see. They need to. Their minds fill in the blanks with stories that make sense to them. You look strong, so you must be a leader. You look sincere, so you must be honest. Machiavelli would simply give them what they're already looking for. Not the truth, but the version of it that makes them comfortable. That, right there, is control. Even in personal relationships, this principle is incredibly powerful. If you walk into a room with emotional composure, self-assurance, and poise, people naturally defer to you. If you present yourself as caring, attentive, and understanding, even while managing your own quiet agenda, they will trust you. They'll open up, they'll invite you into their emotional world, and once you're inside, you're in a position to influence their beliefs, choices, and behavior without ever raising your voice. That's the genius of appearing virtuous while acting strategically. Now, this doesn't mean you have to be fake. Machiavelli didn't preach fakeness, he preached effectiveness. He understood that the world rarely rewards raw truth. It rewards the person who knows how to frame that truth in a way that feels palatable. Strategic appearance isn't about lying. It's about knowing what image opens the right doors. It's about studying the environment, understanding the audience, and crafting a version of yourself that gets you influence, access, and power. In other words, playing the game better than everyone else. In the end, the real power doesn't belong to the loudest, the richest, or even the smartest. It belongs to the one who controls the narrative. And that control begins with one of the most ancient, most underestimated tools in history, appearance. If you want to control someone's thoughts, don't argue with them, move their emotions. Machiavelli understood this better than most. Logic can be debated, reason invites resistance, but emotion bypasses all of that. It slips under the door, enters the bloodstream, and rewires how people see the world. That's why he didn't just manipulate minds, he triggered feelings. Because once someone feels something deeply enough, they stop questioning what's true and start reacting to what feels true. And when they do that, you've shifted their focus from facts to feelings. And now they're playing your game, not theirs. In today's world, where attention is fragmented and speed matters more than depth, this rule is even more effective. We live in a culture where outrage spreads faster than information, where fear headlines get more clicks than truth, and where people are constantly seeking emotional validation. If Machiavelli had access to our modern tools, algorithms, viral trends, reaction-driven content, he wouldn't just use them, he'd master them. Because these tools are built to amplify emotion, and emotion is the fastest way to steer perception. Fear, for instance, is one of the most powerful levers you can pull. Machiavelli once said it is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. That's because fear makes people cautious, obedient, and predictable. When someone fears losing something, whether it's security, status, or love, they become easier to guide. You don't have to force them to move in a certain direction. You just have to make them believe that any other direction is unsafe. And in that subtle panic, you become their anchor. You become the voice they listen to, the presence they cling to, the direction they follow. Hope, on the other hand, is equally effective but more seductive. Give someone a dream, a promise, a glimpse of something better, and they'll walk toward it willingly, even blindly. Machiavelli knew how to inspire loyalty by offering just enough vision to keep people chasing it, but never so much that they felt fully satisfied. Because once people are content, they stop needing you. But if they're always chasing something just out of reach, and you're the one holding the map, they'll keep coming back. That's how you keep control, by staying just ahead of their desire. And then there's guilt, one of the most underestimated emotions in the manipulation toolbox. Make someone feel responsible for your pain or your approval, and you can pull their strings without even touching them. People will go out of their way to relieve guilt, even if it means betraying their own best interests. Machiavelli would recognize this dynamic instantly. He'd know that guilt can be shaped through silence, through passive gestures, through carefully timed reactions. A disappointed glance, a well-placed sigh, a subtle suggestion that they let you down, it's all it takes to tip the scale. No confrontation needed, just emotional suggestion. The brilliance of emotional manipulation is that it rarely looks like manipulation. It looks like a connection. It looks like you're just speaking your truth, being authentic, sharing your feelings. But beneath that surface is strategy. You're not just feeling, you're guiding. You're not just reacting, you're choosing responses that provoke a specific emotional state in the other person. And once they're in that state, they're far more likely to agree, to obey, to believe, or to follow. Even conversations become tools in this approach. If you want to disarm someone, don't confront them, empathize with them. Make them feel seen. Say what they're too afraid to admit. Let them believe you understand them better than they understand themselves. Because once they feel emotionally understood by you, they'll let their guard down. And when their guard is down, you can shape what comes next. They'll absorb your opinions, mimic your confidence, even question their own conclusions because you've met them where they feel vulnerable. Think about relationships, negotiations, leadership, anywhere people interact. Emotional leverage is everywhere. The manager who gets results by guilt, tripping employees into proving their loyalty. The partner who uses tears to avoid accountability. The friend who keeps you close by reminding you how much they've done for you. All of it traces back to one thing, a deep understanding of how emotion clouds logic and opens the door to influence. And here's the most dangerous part. People don't remember the facts of a situation nearly as well as they remember how you made them feel. You can say the exact same words to two people, but if one of them feels empowered by you and the other feels dismissed, they'll walk away with two completely different realities. Machiavelli would exploit this mercilessly. He would speak in a way that left people feeling inspired, validated, seen, while making sure they remembered him as the source of that feeling. And once you associate someone with a powerful emotion, good or bad, it's almost impossible to detach that bond. So, if you want to control how someone thinks, don't waste your breath on proving points. Learn how to make them feel the conclusion you want them to reach, and let them believe they arrived there on their own. If Machiavelli were navigating the modern world, he wouldn't be interested in shouting the loudest or making the most noise. He'd be the one choosing what gets heard in the first place. He knew centuries ago what many people still fail to grasp today. Control the information, and you control the narrative. It's not about overwhelming someone with facts. It's about curating which facts they see, when they see them, and how they are framed. In today's age of information overload, that kind of selective presentation is more powerful than any outright lie. Because the truth, when filtered just right, becomes a tool of manipulation, not clarity. We live in a world where data is abundant, but attention is scarce. Everyone is being bombarded with content, headlines, opinions, and stories every single moment. And in that chaos, people don't stop to question what they're being shown. They react to what feels most immediate, most emotional, most repetitive. That's the window Machiavelli would use. Not to flood you with details, but to feed you just enough information to shape your assumptions while making you believe those assumptions were your own. He wouldn't just ask what people know. He'd ask who told them, why they told them, and what was left out. Because that's where real control lies, not in the story itself, but in what gets omitted. If you tell someone half the truth, and it's the half that benefits your position, they'll likely run with it. If you control the source they trust, the timing of what they hear, and the context in which it's delivered, you've already won. People think they make decisions based on facts, but in reality, they're making decisions based on framed facts, narratives subtly crafted by those who knew exactly what to withhold and when to release. Think about it. This kind of manipulation plays out every day in politics, media, relationships, and business. The leader who reveals just enough about their past to seem authentic, but not enough to show weakness. The media outlet that pushes certain headlines repeatedly until they become truth in the minds of millions. The influencer who shares one side of a drama while leaving the other in silence, knowing full well that silence looks like guilt. This is information warfare at its core, not by distorting reality outright, but by strategically managing what people see and when. And Machiavelli would understand that in today's world, the person who controls the asterisk platform asterisk holds more power than the person with the best argument. It doesn't matter how right you are if no one hears you. What matters is who's able to distribute their version of the story to the most minds, in the most persuasive way. That's why modern manipulation often happens before the debate even begins. It happens in the algorithms, the echo chambers, the headlines, the first impressions. Once someone believes a certain narrative, they become emotionally invested in it. They'll defend it. They'll spread it. They'll even shame others who challenge it. Machiavelli would thrive in this environment. He wouldn't shout at the top of his lungs to convince you. He'd whisper the right thing at the right time and let the echo chamber do the rest. He'd align himself with credible voices, only to steer them slowly, subtly, and intentionally in a direction that benefited him. He'd exploit the trust people put in certain sources, knowing that once trust is established, almost anything can be inserted through that door, even manipulation. And here's what makes this tactic so effective. It doesn't require people to be stupid. It works on intelligent, thoughtful people too. Because the goal isn't to deceive the mind, it's to guide the mind. Give someone a few pieces of carefully selected data, and they'll connect the rest of the dots on their own. People don't need to be told what to think. They just need a strong enough nudge in a particular direction. They'll fill in the gaps, justify the contradictions, and defend the very version of reality you subtly fed them. Even in personal relationships, this strategy shows up constantly. Withholding information becomes a form of control. Telling someone only what makes you look good, timing the truth so it lands in your favor, shaping a story so it garners sympathy before the full picture is revealed. It's not always malicious, sometimes it's instinctive, but the result is the same. The person managing the flow of information ends up controlling the emotional tone of the relationship. And the most dangerous part, people rarely realize it's happening. Because when manipulation is built on controlling information, it doesn't feel like coercion. It feels like discovery, it feels like clarity, it feels like truth. And once someone believes they're seeing the whole truth, they stop looking any further. That's how you shape someone's mind, by deciding what they never get to question in the first place. If there's one thing Machiavelli would do better than almost anyone alive today, it's reading people. Not their words, not their image, but the subtle signals most others miss, the pauses, the insecurities, the unspoken needs. He understood that every person, no matter how strong they appear on the outside, has soft spots, vulnerabilities they work hard to hide. And those hidden weaknesses, once identified, become the keys to control. But here's the twist. Machiavelli wouldn't confront those weaknesses directly. He'd exploit them while smiling, while pretending not to notice, while masking his true intentions behind charm, warmth, and strategic silence. This is the kind of manipulation that doesn't feel like manipulation. It feels like intimacy. It feels like someone gets you, like someone is paying attention. You drop a detail, they remember it. You make a joke, they laugh a little too perfectly. You show fear, and they suddenly become the comforting presence you never knew you needed. But behind the scenes, every piece of that interaction is being stored, cataloged, and prepared for use, not necessarily against you, but always for the manipulator's advantage. That's the brilliance of exploiting weakness quietly. It doesn't come with confrontation. It comes with curiosity. Machiavelli wouldn't press you to open up. He'd just create the space where you feel safe enough to do it yourself. He'd position himself as someone who listens, someone who doesn't judge, someone who's harmless. And as you reveal more, as you expose the fragile parts of yourself without realizing it, he would begin crafting the most powerful form of influence, emotional leverage, and not to destroy you, but to guide you, to make you feel like the choices you're making are yours, even when they're exactly what he wants. This method thrives on subtlety. It's not about dominance, it's about precision. A manipulator who uses brute force is easy to detect, and eventually easy to resist. But someone who listens with intention, who remembers your fears and desires, who speaks in a tone that feels safe while steering the direction of your decisions, that person is far more dangerous, because you won't even see the control until it's too late, and by then you've internalized the manipulation as your own thought process. In relationships, this shows up all the time. The partner who notices your fear of abandonment and slowly makes themselves indispensable. The friend who senses your need for validation and becomes your greatest source of praise until you depend on it. The colleague who realizes your discomfort with confrontation and uses that knowledge to push boundaries you won't challenge. None of this feels like attack. It feels like closeness, like trust. That's why it works. Because when someone uses your vulnerability as a map and masks their ambition under affection, they can steer your behavior without ever raising suspicion. But make no mistake, this is not accidental, it's intentional. Machiavelli would have understood that to control someone long-term, you can't just pressure them or persuade them. You have to learn them, study them. Not in the way most people do, but deeply, psychologically. You have to notice what rattles their confidence. You have to listen for the patterns in their stories, the self-doubt buried in their tone, the emotional scars they still carry quietly. And once you understand those layers, you can offer exactly what they crave: security, approval, connection, but always at a cost that looks small at first. A compromise here, a favor there, until slowly their emotional dependence becomes your power. And while this happens, Machiavelli would advise one thing above all else: never reveal your own intentions. People can sense manipulation if it's too obvious. But if you stay in the background, if you let them believe they're leading, if you appear genuine while strategically guiding the pace of the relationship or the flow of conversation, they'll feel more in control than ever while doing exactly what benefits you, because influence, when wrapped in invisibility, becomes nearly impossible to resist. This is what makes the fox more powerful than the lion. The fox doesn't roar, it watches, it calculates. It moves when others are sleeping and strikes when others least expect it. And the fox never tells you what it's doing, it simply adapts to your terrain. That's what Machiavelli admired: cunning over confrontation, subtlety over spectacle, mastery over emotion. So, if you ever wonder how people lose their power without even realizing it, look at the quiet manipulator who never asked for control but earned it anyway. The one who seemed to always be in the right place at the right time. The one who never pushed but always seemed to benefit. That's not luck, that's strategy. And it begins the moment someone learns how to exploit your weakness while never revealing their own. To Machiavelli, the end was never just the end. It was the justification, the shield, the entire purpose of the game. And when the outcome was power, influence, or survival, he didn't care whether the path to get there was clean or twisted. What mattered was simple. Did it work? In his world, effectiveness outranked morality. Not because he lacked principles, but because he understood that people often admire results more than they question the means. In fact, he knew that if you deliver what people crave, leadership, protection, inspiration, they'll forgive almost anything you did to get there. That's the foundation of his most unsettling belief. Charm, deceit, manipulation, they're all tools, not sins. They are strategies. And in a world where appearances dominate, where stories outweigh facts, and where people remember how you made them feel more than what you actually did, those tools become essential. Because to truly control someone's mind, you don't just shape what they think. You influence what they believe about you. You position yourself as the one who always wins, always knows the way, always seems to come out on top. That aura alone makes people want to follow you. And once they do, they'll rationalize your methods as necessary, or worse, admirable. In modern terms, this might look like the CEO who lays off hundreds but frames it as a heroic sacrifice to save the company, or the politician who spins half-truths with passion and conviction, because he knows that conviction, not honesty, earns votes, or the influencer who carefully edits their story to hide the manipulation but keeps their followers hooked with perfect vulnerability and emotional appeal. Machiavelli wouldn't criticize these people, he'd applaud them, not because they're good, but because they're effective. And in his philosophy, being effective is what ultimately grants you control. People often want to believe that goodness will naturally win, that sincerity always finds a way, that truth will rise on its own. But Machiavelli knew better. He understood human nature not as it should be but as it is. People crave stories that flatter their beliefs. They want leaders who look strong, even if that strength is manufactured. They want to feel safe, heard, and hopeful, and they don't always care how those feelings are delivered. If you give them that, if you solve their problem or validate their world, you can lie, deceive, and manipulate, and they'll still stand behind you. Because to them, the results are what matter. This is why charm is so critical. It buys you time. It makes people overlook your inconsistencies. It softens the edges of your ambition. When people find you likable, when they're emotionally invested in your presence, they tend to lower their defenses. They stop questioning your intentions. They give you the benefit of the doubt. And in that window, you get room to operate, to influence, to win. But Machiavelli would be quick to remind you, charm without strategy is nothing. It's the combination of charm and manipulation that creates power. And when it comes to deceit, he wouldn't flinch at the idea. He wouldn't see it as evil, but as inevitable, because the world is full of people posturing, pretending, performing. If everyone is playing some version of a game, why not play better? Why not lie with purpose? Why not deceive for direction? If the lie leads to influence and the influence leads to control, then in his mind, the lie wasn't a weakness, it was a weapon. A necessary one. But the most powerful tactic Machiavelli taught wasn't just about what to do. It was when to do it. Timing is everything. Manipulation is rarely effective if it's obvious. So you wait. You build trust. You charm, you observe, and then, when the moment's right, you guide the decision. You drop the truth in a way that favors you. You allow just enough resistance to seem fair, but never enough to threaten your position. You make people feel as though they arrived at their own conclusion, when really you walked them there step by step. And once the outcome is achieved, once you've secured their loyalty, their vote, their love, you let them bask in it. You give them the result they wanted. You show them that following you was the right decision all along. And at that point, the journey no longer matters. People rarely go back and dissect how they got somewhere if they like where they ended up. They won't question your motives. They won't trace the manipulation because the outcome feels good. And when something feels good, the mind closes the case. This is the game Machiavelli played, and it's the same one still being played today. With more tools, more platforms, more illusions. But the core remains the same. If the result is desirable enough, people will accept almost anything it took to get there. And in the world of power, that's not just a strategy, it's the rule.